I didn't need to look at the screen to know the message was meant to cut me. Let her order room service. She's old and gets tired fast anyway. We'll tell her we'll meet later. I froze in the hotel hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. My sons, my daughters-in-law, my very own family, they had written those words about me. They had been laughing in a private group chat while I stood just a few feet away, believing I was finally part of them again. What they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that every cent of this trip had been paid for by me. 8 long months of kneading dough before sunrise, selling pies at the town square, sewing until my eyes blurred at night. My savings, my wedding ring, my pride. And that evening, while they were sipping cocktails under the umbrellas, unaware of the storm I was already planning, I made my move. But let me take you back a little, so you understand how we got here. It all began 3 weeks earlier, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The winter sun streamed through the small lace curtains of my kitchen window, painting soft squares of light on my worn wooden table. I had just poured myself a cup of coffee, my one indulgence since becoming a widow 4 years ago, when the phone rang. The moment I heard my eldest son's voice, that gentle, persuasive tone he only used when he wanted something, my chest fluttered with both hope and worry. "Mom," Raphael said warmly, "I have a wonderful idea." My heart leapt. Those words, "I have a wonderful idea," carried me back to when he was a boy, always bursting with dreams and plans. I pressed the phone closer. "What do you think about us taking a family trip for the holidays? All of us together again, like the good old days?" For a second I didn't answer. I just closed my eyes and imagined it. My children and grandchildren together, laughter echoing down hotel hallways, family photos by the pool, a chance to belong again. Tears stung my eyes. For years now, my place at family gatherings had been in the kitchen, setting plates, washing dishes, smiling quietly while conversations passed me by. Could this be different? "That sounds wonderful, son," I whispered, trying not to let my voice crack. Raphael's words tumbled out, full of excitement. A hotel by the coast, pools, restaurants, activities for the kids, memories waiting to be made. Then, as if rehearsed, he added, "There's just one small detail, Mom. The hotel needs one person to handle the reservation. Could you take care of it? We'll transfer you the money afterward." My stomach tightened. Always me. Always the one to sign, to arrange, to guarantee. Yet I pushed the thought aside. This was my chance. Maybe my last chance, to show them I was still the glue holding us all together. "Of course, son," I said softly. "You can count on me." The moment I hung up, I dialed the hotel. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the receiver. "Golden Palms Hotel, how can I help you?" a cheerful receptionist asked. "I'd like to make a reservation," I said, my voice shaking with both nerves and joy. "For 12 people." The words sounded almost unreal in my own mouth. 12 people. My whole family. The receptionist clicked away at her keyboard, then read out the numbers that nearly stopped my heart. "That would be 5 family suites, all-inclusive, 7 nights. The total comes to $4,200. A deposit of $2,000 will be required today. $4,200. My monthly pension was $800. My savings, after months of selling pies and sewing, barely reached the halfway point. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my rocking chair, the coffee long gone cold on the table, and ran numbers through my head until my temples ached. $50 in cash, a small emergency savings, and one more thing. The ring. I opened the drawer of my bedside table and held it up to the lamplight. My wedding ring, a modest band with a diamond that caught the light in a way that always reminded me of my husband's laugh. 42 years of marriage glimmered back at me from that stone. The next day, with shaking hands, I carried it to Mr. Jenkins' jewelry shop downtown. His eyes softened when he saw me. "Estella," he said kindly, "that ring. It means a lot, doesn't it?" "It means everything," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But I need to know, what can you give me for it?" He examined it slowly, carefully, and finally said, $800. 800. For 42 years of love, promises, and memories. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. But then I thought of Raphael's voice, of my grandchildren's laughter, of sitting by the ocean together. "It's a deal," I whispered. With the ring money and my savings, I scraped together the deposit. My heart pounded as I read the confirmation email. 5 suites, 7 nights, paid in full by me. My name alone on the reservation. For the next 3 weeks, every dollar I earned went straight into paying the balance. My house grew colder as I kept the heater low. I ate less. I walked everywhere instead of paying for the bus. My fingers grew stiff from sewing long into the night. Each sacrifice tasted bitter, yet I swallowed it gladly for the promise of one sweet thing: togetherness. 3 days before the trip, Raphael called again. "Mom, we're so excited. The kids can't stop talking about it. Monica has already packed. How are things on your end?" "Everything's ready," I said, though I had just sent the last payment using my credit card, debt now hanging over me like a storm cloud. "That's great. We'll sort out the money later. The important thing is to enjoy ourselves." I forced a smile he couldn't see and replied softly, "Of course, son." The morning of the trip, I woke before dawn, buzzing with anticipation like a child on Christmas morning. I packed my best dresses, my late mother's pearl necklace, and a pair of walking shoes for the beach. I slipped into a light blue dress that Diego once said made me look younger, dabbed on some makeup, and smiled at the mirror. This was it, the beginning of a perfect week. At 7:30, Raphael's car honked outside. I rolled my suitcase down the walk, my heart soaring with each step. Monica sat in the passenger seat, eyes glued to her phone. The children were in the back, tapping on their tablets. "Good morning, family," I said brightly as I climbed in. "Hi, Grandma," the kids replied without looking up. Monica barely mumbled a hello. Raphael started the engine. "Ready for a perfect family vacation?" I asked, hoping to spark excitement. "Yes, Mom," Raphael replied flatly. His eyes stayed on the road. As the car hummed along, I tried again and again to start conversations. About Raphael's work, about the kids, about hotel activities. Each attempt fizzled into one-word answers, distracted nods, or Monica's quiet laughter at whatever flashed across her phone screen. "Something funny?" I asked gently, leaning closer. "It's just my friend's group chat," she said without looking at me. "You wouldn't understand." I leaned back, staring out at the changing trees, the rolling fields. My chest tightened. Every mile reminded me of what I'd sold, what I'd sacrificed, what I'd risked just to be here with them. When the hotel came into view, my breath caught. It was more beautiful than the photos. Tall palms swayed in the salt-scented breeze. White walls gleamed under the sun. Fountains splashed into marble basins, sending sparkling droplets into the air. "This place is paradise," I whispered, overwhelmed. The children raced ahead, shrieking with joy. My sons unloaded the bags. I stood a moment longer, soaking it in, until Mariana, my teenage granddaughter, slipped her hand into mine. "It's incredible, Grandma," she said, eyes shining. At least someone shared my excitement. Inside the lobby, I gave my name to the receptionist. She smiled warmly. "Mrs. Williams, welcome. 5 suites, 7 nights, all inclusive for 12. Everything is ready." She handed me the keys, elegant little palm tree charms dangling from each one. I turned, beaming, ready to share the moment. But the smiles I expected weren't there. The lobby was empty. My sons, their wives, the grandchildren, they had already disappeared toward the elevators, leaving me standing alone at the desk, the keys heavy in my hand. Only Mariana lingered by my side, her face pale. "Where did everyone go?" I asked, my stomach sinking. "To the rooms," she whispered. Dad said, "They'll meet up with you later." Her voice quivered. Something in my chest tightened. "Mariana, is there something you're not telling me?" She hesitated, then pulled out her phone with trembling hands. "Grandma, there's a group chat. They made it without you. It's called Drama-Free Vacation." Her words pierced through me like ice. "What do you mean? Without me?" She showed me the screen. My vision blurred as I read message after message, each line a dagger. The old lady took care of everything as usual. Perfect. Now we can enjoy ourselves without her watching. Embarrassing how excited she was at reception. The marble floor seemed to shift beneath me. I couldn't breathe. 8 months of pies, sewing until my fingers ached, My wedding ring. All for this? I heard Mariana's voice, shaky and small. Grandma, are you okay? No, I wasn't. But as I stood there in that sparkling hotel lobby with betrayal flooding through my veins, something hardened inside me. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't let them see me crumble, because they thought they had played me. But what they didn't know, what they could never imagine, was that the real game was only beginning. And this time, I held all the cards. If you've ever trusted family only to be let down, you'll understand how I felt in that moment. Tell me in the comments if this has ever happened to you. I promise you're not alone. The lobby air felt colder now, though I knew it wasn't the air conditioning. It was betrayal seeping into my bones. I pressed the room keys against my chest like they might anchor me, like they might remind me I was still standing, still breathing. Mariana squeezed my hand. Grandma, I shouldn't have shown you, but I couldn't let you sit at dinner tonight not knowing what they're saying behind your back. I kissed her trembling fingers. You did the right thing, child. We rode the elevator in silence, the metallic walls reflecting our pale faces back at us. Mariana glanced at me again and again as if checking I wouldn't break. I didn't. Not yet. Inside my suite, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears come. Not loud sobs, no. Silent tears, the kind that burn all the way down. The kind that remind you you've been a fool. I had given them everything. My youth, my strength, my last dollars, my wedding ring. And what had they given me? A secret chat mocking me. A vacation they wanted to enjoy without me. But beneath the grief, another feeling stirred. Not anger. Anger comes fast and burns out quickly. This was colder, heavier, like stone being laid brick by brick. Resolve, I whispered into the empty room. You think you've outsmarted me. But this story isn't finished yet. The next morning, before the sun fully rose, I sat at the little desk by the balcony with the hotel phone in my hand. My fingers hesitated above the buttons. I had two choices. Pretend nothing happened and let them trample me again. Or take back what was mine. I dialed the bank. Good morning. This is Pacific First Bank. How may I assist you today? This is Estella Williams, I said, my voice steady. I need to know the current balance of my savings account and credit card. Also, I'd like to discuss reversing a large recent transaction if possible. There was a pause, clicking of keys. Mrs. Williams, your savings account currently stands at $43.21. My heart sank, though I already knew, and your credit card balance is negative $1,100. The room swayed slightly. Debt, on top of humiliation. I cleared my throat. And the large transaction, payment to Golden Palms Hotel. Is there a way to place a temporary hold or adjustment if it was made under false pretenses? The woman hesitated. If you believe there was any element of fraud or coercion, we can flag it. But we'll need a written statement. My hand trembled as I wrote the case number she gave me. Fraud, coercion, words that made my heart pound. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was financial betrayal. I hung up and immediately dialed another number. The hotel reception. Front desk. This is Louise speaking. This is Mrs. Williams. The one who made the group reservation, I said. I'd like to clarify some details about the booking. Yes, of course, Mrs. Williams. Everything is under your name. Exactly. Under my name. Which means, if any rooms go unpaid, who is responsible? You are, ma'am, Louise said gently. Then I'd like to make a note on the system. No one else is authorized to make charges, extensions, or changes to the reservation. Only me. Do you understand? There was a pause. Yes, ma'am. Only you. And another thing, I added, lowering my voice. Please ensure that every meal, every room service, every order, is billed directly to the room of the guest who makes it. Do not roll it into the group bill. Louise hesitated. That is unusual. But since you are the primary account holder, we will honor your request. I thanked him, hung up, and let out a long, shaky breath. One brick in the wall, one step toward control, but it wasn't enough. They could still twist things, corner me, guilt me. I needed protection stronger than polite words and hotel rules. So, with my last scraps of courage, I dialed the number of an old friend, Henry Jacobs, a retired lawyer who once helped me settle my late husband's estate. Estella, his warm baritone filled my ear. It's been too long. How are you holding up? I almost broke down right then, but I steadied myself. Henry, I need your help again. It's about my family. He listened quietly as I poured out the story. My savings, the ring, the payments, the group chat, the betrayal. When I finished, silence hung heavy on the line. Estella, he finally said, his voice firm. They exploited you. You have legal grounds. If you wish, I can draft a document protecting your assets during this trip. Anything they charge, any attempt to put debt on you, you'll have proof it was unauthorized. My eyes filled with tears. Not of sadness this time, but relief. Would you really do that for me? Of course. Email me the reservation documents. I'll prepare everything within the hour. And true to his word, he did. By lunchtime, a signed statement sat in my inbox, ready to print at the hotel business center. My shield, my proof. Later that afternoon, I forced myself to step out of the room. I wouldn't let them see me hiding. I walked toward the pool where the whole family lounged, drinks in hand, sunglasses on, laughter floating in the air. Raphael spotted me first. Mom, finally. We thought you were napping all day. I smiled faintly. Just taking care of a few things. Monica raised an eyebrow. Like what? Booking bingo night for yourself? The others chuckled. I swallowed the sting. No, dear. Just making sure everything is properly organized. After all, everything here is under my name. The laughter quieted a little. Eyes darted. They knew what I meant, even if they pretended otherwise. Anyway, I added, smoothing my dress, I'll be enjoying my dinner at the rooftop restaurant tonight, alone, but you all go on and have fun. Alone? Diego asked, frowning. Yes. I met his gaze steadily. Sometimes solitude tastes sweeter than company that doesn't value you. For the first time that trip, none of them had a quick retort. That night, as I sat at my rooftop table overlooking the ocean, the waiter brought me a glass of wine on the house. For you, señora. You look like a woman who deserves something special. I thanked him with a trembling smile. For the first time in days, I felt seen. As the waves crashed below, my phone buzzed. A new message from Mariana. Grandma, they're whispering downstairs. They said they didn't expect you to be so calm. They're worried you might ruin things. One of them even said you're acting dangerous. Me. I set the phone down and stared into the night. Dangerous wasn't the right word. But powerful? Yes. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. Because they didn't realize the truth yet. This vacation no longer belonged to them. It belonged to me. The next morning, I woke before the sun again. I couldn't sleep anyway. My mind was too alive, too restless. I pulled back the curtains and watched the horizon glow pale pink, the ocean waves curling like silver ribbons. For years, I had thought of myself as a burden, an aging widow with little more to give. But now, I realized something shocking. I held the reins. The hotel staff respected me. The bills were in my name. And my family, for all their arrogance, hadn't noticed how fragile their comfort really was. That thought carried me through the day. When I entered the breakfast hall, their chatter quieted. Monica looked up from her plate of fruit, eyes narrowing. Well, good morning, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. We thought maybe you'd overslept again. I offered her a gentle smile. Oh no, I was up early making sure our rooms were all properly accounted for. You know, since everything is under my name. The clink of silverware paused. Diego shifted uncomfortably. Raphael reached for his coffee. They didn't dare look me in the eye. Mariana glanced at me, a little spark of pride in her gaze. I buttered my toast slowly, savoring the moment. So what are the plans for today? Spa appointments? Boat rides? Just remember, whatever you charge will be billed directly to your own rooms. A sharp silence. Then Monica forced a laugh. Well, isn't that efficient? Efficient. She meant inconvenient. And it was, because suddenly, their free ride had ended. By midday, I sat in a shaded cabana, watching them order drinks. Put it on the group bill, Diego told the waiter confidently. But the waiter shook his head. I'm sorry, sir. Mrs. Williams left specific instructions. Each order must be charged individually. The look on Diego's face was priceless. His cheeks reddened. That's ridiculous. We're family. The waiter only gestured politely toward me. I lifted my iced tea in silent toast, watching his jaw tighten. From that moment on, they tiptoed around me like nervous cats. They still whispered together, but their laughter had thinned. The vacation glow was cracking, and oh, how sweet that crack sounded. That afternoon, they invited me on a boat ride. It felt more like a performance than a gesture of love. Come on, Mom, Raphael urged, draping an arm around my shoulder. It'll be fun, just like old times. We can sit on deck, have a drink, and watch the dolphins. I looked at him, studied the forced cheer in his eyes. Did he think I'd forgotten? That I'd forgive so quickly just because he remembered to call me Mom in public? I'll pass, I said softly. But you all go ahead. Enjoy it, just make sure you pay for the tickets yourselves, Monica muttered under her breath. Unbelievable. I pretended not to hear. Instead, I turned to Mariana. Why don't you stay with me today? We'll explore the town a bit, just the two of us. Her face lit up. I'd love that, Grandma. And so, while the others sailed off in their rented boat, we wandered cobblestone streets, sampling little pastries, laughing at trinket shops, and buying a single seashell necklace we shared between us. For the first time in years, I felt like someone's treasure, not someone's wallet. That evening, while the others lounged at the bar, Mariana and I slipped into the hotel business center. The whir of the printer filled the quiet room as Henry's documents slid out page by page. At the top of each sheet, Notice of Financial Liability. It spelled out, in legal language, that no family member could obligate me to pay for their expenses. Any attempt to do so would be considered fraud. I signed each copy with a steady hand. Mariana looked nervous. Do you think they'll take it seriously? Oh, they will, I whispered, sliding the papers into a folder. Because tomorrow night they're going to hear it loud and clear. The family dinner was scheduled for the rooftop restaurant. I requested a long table with candles and flowers, my treat. I wanted it to look beautiful, perfect, unforgettable. They arrived dressed up, smiles plastered on their faces. Now this, Monica said, settling into her chair, is what I call a vacation. I poured myself a glass of wine. My hands didn't shake, not this time. Halfway through the meal, as they laughed and chatted, I tapped my glass. May I have your attention, please? The table stilled. I rose slowly, unfolding the papers from my folder. I just wanted to make a little announcement. I know this vacation has been interesting, and I thought it best to clarify something before there's any more confusion. Their eyes flicked to the documents. These are legal notices, I continued calmly. They state, in no uncertain terms, that I am not financially responsible for any of your personal charges on this trip. Every room, every meal, every drink, you pay for yourselves. If anyone attempts otherwise, it will be considered fraud. Monica's fork clattered to her plate. Fraud? Are you kidding me? No, I said softly. I'm done being your fool. The rest of the dinner was chaos. Diego demanded explanations. Raphael tried to charm his way out of it. Monica called me dramatic, bitter, paranoid, but I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just folded the papers neatly back into my folder, took a sip of wine, and let their fury wash over me like ocean waves against rock. Because for once, I wasn't the one drowning. When the shouting quieted, Mariana slid her chair closer to mine. She wrapped her arms around me, her cheek warm against my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Grandma, she whispered. You're finally standing up to them. Tears burned my eyes, but this time they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of strength. I kissed her hair and whispered back, it's only the beginning. Because deep down, I knew. This was just the first move. The real reckoning hadn't even begun. The night after the rooftop dinner, silence hung heavy in the hotel corridors. When I walked past their rooms, I didn't hear laughter spilling out. No clinking glasses, no careless jokes, just muffled voices, sharp and hurried, as though they didn't want me to catch a single word. It didn't matter. I had already caught enough. At breakfast the next morning, their chairs were pulled close together, their conversations hushed. Monica didn't even bother disguising her glare when I sat down. I spooned yogurt into my bowl, every movement deliberate, calm, unhurried. They wanted me rattled. They wanted me ashamed. But shame was no longer part of me. Raphael finally broke the silence. Mom, don't you think you're taking this a little too far? I mean, legal documents? Fraud? That's extreme. I stirred my coffee, letting the spoon ring softly against the cup. Extreme? You emptied my savings, sold my wedding ring, dragged me into debt, and laughed about it. That's extreme. All I did was draw a line. Diego muttered something under his breath about me being dramatic. Monica leaned forward, her tone sugar-coated but her eyes sharp. You're making everyone uncomfortable, Estella. Vacations are supposed to be fun. Then have your fun, I said, looking her straight in the eye. Just don't have it at my expense. Their smiles faltered. The waiter came by, and each of them, one by one, had to give their room numbers for their meals. None of them looked at me while doing it. Later that day, I walked along the poolside, the sun burning against my shoulders, and noticed how quickly their laughter died the moment I approached. They shifted their lounge chairs away, whispered furiously, checked over their shoulders as though I were some unwanted shadow. They still hadn't understood that I was no shadow at all. I was the ground beneath their feet, and with one small shift, I could make them stumble. I began to see their cracks more clearly each hour. Diego, who had boasted about endless cocktails, now sipped water, his eyes darting toward the waiter every time he thought about ordering something stronger. Raphael spent more time on his phone, scrolling with tight brows, no doubt calculating his balances, realizing that the endless generosity of his mother had finally run dry. Monica, ever the queen bee, tried to maintain her polished smile, but the sharpness in her voice betrayed her. And still, I said nothing. I let them stew. Sometimes silence is the loudest revenge. That evening, I made a quiet stop at the front desk. Luis, the young clerk, straightened when he saw me. Good evening, Mrs. Williams. Is everything all right? Perfectly fine, I told him. But I'd like to request something small. At checkout, please ensure that no room can be cleared until all charges under that guest's account are fully paid. Of course, he said with a respectful nod. That is standard policy, but I'll make a special note. I thanked him and walked away, the click of my shoes on the marble floor echoing like a drumbeat. When I returned to my room, Mariana was waiting for me. Her cheeks flushed with worry. Grandma, they're planning something. I overheard them. They said if they can't get you to loosen up, they'll find a way to force you. Monica even said she'll make you so guilty you'll hand everything back. I stroked her hair, calming her trembling. Let them try, I whispered. Every guilt trip they throw at me only builds my strength. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my heart steady. For so long, they had toyed with me as though I were fragile glass. But now I had become stone, and they were the ones cracking. The next morning brought new theater. Raphael knocked on my door, all smiles. Mom, how about we take a family photo at the beach? We hardly have pictures together these days, I studied him. Behind the smile, his eyes were desperate. This wasn't about capturing a memory. It was about mending appearances, pretending the fractures weren't there. Of course, I said sweetly, and walked with him to the beach where the others were waiting, dressed in coordinated outfits, forced cheer plastered on their faces. The photographer clicked away as we posed against the backdrop of golden sand and rolling waves. But in every photo I stood tall, chin raised, my eyes sharper than they had ever seen. These pictures would not tell a story of unity. They would tell a story of a woman who no longer bowed her head. When the session ended, Diego muttered something about going for lunch. They looked at me expectant, waiting for me to offer, to pull out my wallet, to smooth the way as I always had. Instead, I smiled and said, Enjoy, I'll be dining elsewhere. The disappointment on their faces was almost comical. That afternoon, I took Mariana to a small cafe in town. We sipped lemonade and shared a slice of cake. Grandma, she whispered, I've never seen you like this before. You're stronger than all of them put together. I held her hand, because I finally remembered something important. I raised them. I built their lives. They may have forgotten who I am, but I haven't. And I'll remind them, before this trip is over. When evening came, the family gathered again, but this time the tension was unbearable. They argued quietly among themselves, voices sharp, faces tight. I sat across the lobby pretending to read a magazine, every word seeping into me. "She's not paying for anything anymore," Monica hissed. "Well, what do you expect?" "We can't cover all this!" Diego snapped back. Raphael rubbed his temples. "We just need her to give in. She'll crack eventually. She always does." I lowered the magazine and smiled to myself. Not this time. That night, as the moon cast silver over the ocean, I made my decision. It wasn't enough to draw boundaries. It wasn't enough to make them pay their own way. They had taken too much from me already. If they thought they could corner me, if they thought guilt could still bind me, then I would have to show them just how wrong they were. So I picked up the phone, dialed Henry's number again, and said the words I never thought I'd say. "Henry, I need to know what happens if I cancel the entire reservation. Every room, every amenity. What would happen then?" There was silence on the other end. Then Henry's low, steady voice. "They would be evicted, Estella. They'd have to pay immediately or leave. Do you want to go that far?" I looked out at the moonlit water, its surface restless, untamed, free. "Yes," I whispered. "I think it's time they learn exactly who they're dealing with." The memory of that night is etched into my heart like a scar that refuses to heal. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can still see the dim glow of the hotel's hallway. The silence that pressed against my chest, and the weight of knowing that I had been left behind by the very people who were supposed to love me most. I had paid for everything. I had made sure each detail of that trip was perfect. Yet there I was, sitting alone on the edge of the bed, staring at the door that would not open for me. They thought they had outsmarted me, sneaking away and leaving me in that room like a forgotten piece of luggage. But what they didn't know was that I had already prepared for this moment. I had already decided that when the time came, I would make my move, and they would finally see me for who I really was. It didn't start that night, though. No, the cracks had been forming long before we ever arrived at that hotel. Family doesn't just betray you suddenly. It happens little by little, with words spoken carelessly, with silences that cut sharper than knives, with glances that carry more judgment than love. I had tried to ignore those signs, telling myself I was overthinking, that they were just stressed or distracted. But in truth, I had been pushed aside for years, treated like an old piece of furniture, still standing there, still useful when needed, but never cherished, never polished, never celebrated. And I foolishly had kept giving time, giving money, giving energy I didn't even have to spare, until one day, the giving felt like bleeding. And I realized I had nothing left to pour into people who only saw me as a resource, not a human being. That's why I planned this trip. It wasn't just a vacation. It was supposed to be a chance to reconnect, to remind my children and their families that I was more than just the woman who cooked at Thanksgiving, or the babysitter they could drop the kids with. I wanted them to see me again, really see me, as a mother, as a woman, as someone with stories and feelings and dreams of her own. So I paid for it all. The flights, the rooms, the dinners. I did it with a smile, tucking away the sting of knowing that not one of them had offered to contribute. "It's okay," I told myself. "This is what mothers do. They give, even when no one asks them to. Maybe this time they'll notice. Maybe this time they'll say thank you." But thank you never came. Instead, I watched as my kindness became invisible. They treated the hotel like it belonged to them, never pausing to remember who had arranged it. They ordered food without asking me what I wanted. They planned outings without checking if I was tired. And worst of all, they acted as though my presence was optional. I caught my daughter-in-law whispering once, her lips barely moving but her eyes rolling with annoyance. "She slows us down," always complaining about her feet, always needing a break. I had to excuse myself to the restroom, pressing the back of my hand to my mouth to stop the sob that threatened to escape. I wasn't complaining, I was simply aging. My body didn't move as fast as theirs anymore. But instead of compassion, I was met with impatience. That night at the hotel, I felt it all come crashing together. We had returned from dinner, and everyone had gone to their rooms. I thought we were done for the day, that perhaps tomorrow would be better. But when I woke later, restless and thirsty, I noticed the silence was too deep. I checked the hallway and saw no shoes outside the doors, no muffled laughter, no sound of televisions. They were gone. All of them. My children, their spouses, even my grandchildren. Gone without a word. My heart pounded as I moved from door to door, knocking softly at first, then harder, hoping someone would answer. Nothing. The realization hit me like a stone to the chest. They had left me behind. I sat back on my bed, my hands trembling. Betrayal tastes bitter, and I could feel it in my mouth, on my tongue, like I had swallowed poison. I wanted to cry, to scream, to demand an answer from the walls around me, but I didn't. I sat there in the quiet, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. "So this is how little I mean to them," I whispered. And then almost instantly, another voice answered me inside my head. "No, this is how much they underestimate you." And that was when my resolve hardened. They thought I was a weak old woman, too naive to realize what was happening around her. But they were wrong. They had no idea what I had planned, no idea that the very trip they thought they controlled was one I had orchestrated from start to finish. They thought I was powerless, but I held the purse strings, the reservations, the confirmations. And that night, I made up my mind that if they wanted to play cruel, I would play smarter. I don't think they ever noticed the way I watched, the way I studied each of their faces, memorizing how their eyes shifted when money was mentioned, how quickly their tones changed when they wanted something from me. I had been quiet for too long, letting their actions go unchecked. But in silence, I had gathered everything I needed. I had passwords. I had account numbers. I had the receipts that proved I had paid for it all. They thought they were clever, slipping out to enjoy the night without me. But they forgot that every room, every car, every meal had been booked under my name. They forgot that without me they had nothing. And in that moment, as the night stretched on and loneliness wrapped around me like a shroud, I realized I had been given a gift. The gift of clarity. The gift of knowing that sometimes, to teach people the value of love, you have to let them feel the weight of losing it. I leaned back against the pillows, my heart still aching, but my mind strangely calm. I remembered holding each of my babies in my arms when they were born. The way their tiny fingers curled around mine. The way I swore to protect them with every ounce of my being. Where had that promise gone? How had we come to this, where those same children could abandon me so easily? It wasn't just about the hotel. It was about every time I had been dismissed. Every time my words were drowned out by their louder voices. Every time my love had been taken for granted. Tonight was simply the moment I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. And still, as my chest tightened with anger, another part of me whispered with sorrow. What if they don't even notice you're gone? What if they never come back for you? That thought nearly broke me. To be invisible to strangers is one thing. To be invisible to your own blood is another. My hands shook as I reached for the lamp, turning it off so that the room fell into shadow. I lay there in the darkness, listening to the silence of the hotel, wondering how long it would take before they realized what they had done, or if they ever would. But here's the truth I didn't say out loud. I wasn't powerless. Not anymore.